Hello, dear friend. Today we will learn to make a sound like a metal band. We will form the sound of guitars, bass and drums to be nasty and sound good. I put all the long chains of equalization into Impulse so the computer wouldn't suffer. These files you will find in my channel Boosty, as well as among these files will be triggers that I used in the project. Well, let's start. I use my libraries, which you can also find at the link in the description. From the first used only Cymbals, from the second all. Triggers can be used as you like. I prefer to do it through Contact, only change the velocity definition level so that in Ghost Notes there was no excessive attack. The whole processing in the project is simple, and there is nothing complicated. What our forces are now focused on is just to give more control over frequencies. Kick processing consists of filtering frequencies. The main role will be taken by the trigger, and this kick will add light deviations to the signal, which in theory will give us less robotic strikes. As for snare, the trigger also takes the main position. From this channel we need only Ghost Notes. The first thing I do is raise the signal to the right level and clear the sound spectrum from the excess frequencies. And at the beginning of the circuit I put a compressor that works in the sidechain mode from the trigger. Thus the main signals become quieter and the influence on the Ghost Notes is almost invisible. On toms we lift a little common tone and pick up unpleasant frequencies in the middle that emerge at the end of processing. Also with soothe additionally clean spectrum. Then with the help of two compressors we form the dynamics. The first works in a fast mode, the second in a slow mode. As a result it will give us a dense and more readable sound in the mix. Then with the help of the console saturate the signal. It will give a less visible effect of the previous plugins, adding a more aesthetic sound. All that remains is to raise the volume level and make the signal a little wider. As for cymbals, the processing on them is the same, not counting the latest plugins. With these impulses I adjust the sound to the reference. At the same time I saturate and compress the dynamic range. On the overheads channel I thought too much middle, so I remove it with the soothe. And the hi-hat and ride channel I additionally saturize to make them more visible among overheads. The group channel I start with soothe to make the higher frequencies and the overall frequency spectrum softer. Next comes the last frequency correction. And then I had the equalization that I needed in the context of the mix, and I took the frequencies that were mostly annoying to me. Next comes sidechain compression from the group channel triggers. Note the volume of the input group. The suppression is quite strong, but in the context of the mix it is not heard, as the attack and release is the fastest. The soothe also goes in the sidechain mode. It is necessary to cymbals do not interfere with kick and snare at the frequency level. Note that it works in mid-side mode. Work with the room is similar to that of overheads. All elements of the drums with the room go to the common group, where frequency correction, signal saturation and dynamic range compression occurs. Also added reverb. This will smudge the signal a little. Later, while processing the group channel, I heard that snare has a long tail. It was picked up by the Saturn. I also picked up the average toms frequencies. Next, I decided to create a reverb group. Note the volume of channels that go to this group. The idea was that it should be a small group prioritized at the center of the mix to add depth. The essence of processing is exactly the same, even used an impulse from a group of rooms. Please note that the group of rooms should be 10 decibels quieter. I almost forgot, I decided to reduce a bit the latitude of the cymbals group. It should help in the construction of the sound scene. On a group of triggers is one fast compressor. It is mixed by 50%. And the volume of kick increased by 2 decibels. On the group bus of drums is a compressor that squeezes the signal literally a couple of decibels. It also costs the console to saturate the signal and the limiter, which compresses the dynamic range in loud areas. As the basis of the bass, I used my library, which boasts a good attack and a lot of samples per note. The processing analogy is the same. We change the sound to the reference sound, so that there are no giant treatment chains with equalization. The same impulses come to the help. First adjust the DI signal before entering the amplifier, later apply the cabinet as a pulse. At the end of the chain there is a compressor in the side chain from the kick trigger. This will give some ripple and integrity of the mix. To get a better kick through the bass frequencies, he helps soothe. Working on the same logic as the compressor. The bass work is finished. Isn't it fast? Before the signal goes into the amplifier, decided to clean a little the middle frequencies the signal. Based on Revolver 4. For me it is beautiful within the quality of overload and its capabilities. The settings can be seen on the screen. The next challenge was to recreate the guitar tone, which took a long time. Anyway, it didn't stop me from forgetting to include in the impulse equalization, which you can see now. The following processing steps are the same. We saturize and compress the dynamic range. Only side chain compression in this case begins to work already from snare. If you've seen, the guitars are 90% panoramic. It gave me the idea to create an additional group where the panorama would be much wider and mix it with the main. For the lead guitar, the processing is the same as for the main. Starting with the limiter, there are changes. The key is to make the most stable guitar tone that will not interrupt everything else, but will be felt and present. On the master channel first decided to reduce the volume to have a margin for volume in its twisted further actions. But since the plugin allowed you to install drive, I decided to use it. If there is a spin, you need to spin. The next plugin will stabilize the frequency a little on one level, should add uniformity. Lightweight compressor set on small reduction values. Next comes master equalization of tone under reference. I will remind you that the file will be attached with all the impulses. Then comes the equalization based on the mix. Very subjective moment. We clear the spectrum by side mode, allow to expand the mix even more, and finally raise the level with isotope. The following plugins do nothing, just analyze the track as it mixes. On this I have everything. Hope you have learned something new for yourself. Until the next meetings.